I'm really excited to have this opportunity to both meet and speak with Christiane Coste Cacho. Christiane, how are you feeling today?
Great. I did my practice actually with Christina, that you have also interviewed in your podcast.
Oh,
Um,
amazing, amazing
yeah.
with Christina Martini.
Yes.
Oh, incredible. She's so sweet and amazing. And everyone listening, I just recorded and published episode with Brendan Smullen. And Brendan is your husband, correct, Christiane?
Yes. He's my husband, the father of my new baby, and we're also business partners. So all the things.
Amazing. It's quite the journey, isn't it? Where are you joining me today? Where are you?
I'm in Mexico City, and my baby and I came to visit family so she can meet everyone on this side of the family, and we'll spend the holidays in Southeast Mexico. So, yeah, I'm
Oh,
having a little bit of family time right now.
oh my gosh. Well, that's amazing. Is this the first time that you've been able to travel back home with your daughter?
Yes, she's just 3 months old. So, and I arrived almost like a month ago.
Amazing. Very
Yeah,
cool.
so yeah, this is the first big trip with her, but she will definitely be a traveler. We have a lot of trips planned for next year.
Cool. And obviously, your family is overjoyed to be able to take care of her and spend time with her.
Yes, yes, everyone loves babies here, and she's the first granddaughter. So let's say that the queen right now.
That's cool. That's amazing. Can you tell me a little bit about what your first experience finding or learning about yoga was?
Yeah, well, I have a background in dance. I danced classical ballet for 15 years since I
Wow.
was basically a baby. And once I stopped dancing because I was focusing more on like university and everything, I found yoga initially because I was just curious about the movement aspect of it. And I did like it, but it was not really until my master's in human rights and the work I was doing that I found Ashtanga yoga. And I started to have more of a daily practice routine. I mean, my first Ashtanga class was literally a full primary class. And I was like, oh, I really think this is what I will like. There were a lot of aspects that called me from like just the precision of it as a classical dancer. Of course, that's like, oh, wow, this is so. I don't know, it just felt very like much like home. And then when I found out that there was a self practice component, that just was a full game changer, because I was working with very heavy issues in Mexico and Central America, like survivors of torture and journalists at risk. And yeah, the practice just became like a safe space for me to explore and process a lot of what I was witnessing.
Wow. Can you tell me a little bit about that? So, what degree did you get in university that led you down the path of social justice issues?
Yeah, I did first international relations here in Mexico, and then I did a master's in human rights studies in Columbia University in New York City.
Wow.
So yeah, and then I was a professor at university as well. So I don't know. I was always called to that path. I worked first for government and then for NGOs, and yeah, I just started working on a little bit some of, let's say, the most challenging situations. But I always felt called to help make change. Yeah, be of service, and things unfolded that way.
What is a situation that you found yourself in that you think is interesting or was life-changing for you?
Well, within that, I would say there were just so many, but some of the, I think, situations that really made me lean very much, for example, on the practice was hearing all the testimonies of survivors of torture who were also have been uh, victims of sexual violence and gender-based violence, of course. So that was just so heavy and hard to process because you get to see the darkest part of humanity, but then also so much light because there's people who, even in those conditions, they're willing to support others and continue fighting for what they think is right. So I think that was just a big realization of how complex life can be, and you can hold extreme sadness and extreme joy in the same like
Mm,
space, or fear but at the same time courage. So I think I needed the practice to be able to process that not only in my mind but almost also like in a somatic way. And yeah, that was completely life changing because a lot of us live lives that are much more maybe calm, or we're not necessarily exposed to those shocks. So yeah, that just completely changed the way I see the world and made me also be extremely grateful for every little single thing that we have because nothing is granted.
yes. Oh, that's amazing. I I read that you've lived and worked in both Mexico, Central America, and then also obviously in the US. What was a situation in Central America? I'm curious, did you travel to a specific country that then when you arrive, is it that they like were you working within a correctional institution, or was it in the setting of like therapy or group therapy where people were able to process their emotion, or was it under the setting of a prison? I'm just so curious to hear how do you like say post work in the university actually end up in a situation where you can interact in this way? Like what, how does that unfold?
Yeah, I started working for a big organization called Freedom House, and we have a big array of programs. In Central America, we were working mostly with activists and journalists who were at risk because of the work they were doing. So let's say journalists who were reporting on corruption or gangs, and they then were attacked. Sometimes that meant just physical attack, or sometimes it meant them being taken to prison. So and same with activists. It was a lot of work with indigenous communities, which is a whole other beautiful set of work, but it was the same. They were being attacked for what they were defending. So my job was mostly to support them through many different avenues, including capacity building, how to be a bit more safe, how to establish protocols in case in which something happens to them, from digital security to physical security. And then, I mean, from there, a lot of things unfold also regarding legislation and advocacy. So it was a pretty wide range of activities that we did. And I mean, of course, there was a lot of reward in working with them, enhancing their capacities, learning a lot from them. But also, we lost some people because, I mean, we were not able to help them in time and they got killed.
Yeah.
Right. So, again, I think you're much more aware of the fragility of life and the importance of doing something with life when you're here.
Gosh, that's so, I hear you. That's so powerful. I mean, how do you find strength to continue pushing forward if you see incredible injustice and this maybe sense of like good and evil, where, you know, people are trying to expose what's actually going on, and then people are also at the same time being silenced for exposing the reality of life? Do you have a certain set of skills or tools, or is that where you find yoga has been a real boon to you to be able to manage that type of realization?
Yeah, think thankfully there were a set of tools, including obviously like with therapists, we did some group processing, obviously personal therapy, but I found the practice to be also a really important pillar in to keep pushing forward because while talk therapy is really important, I just felt that something that allowed me to move and not always be like in that conversation of and talking about the same thing once and again was really helpful as a complement. And I think the other piece that helped me push through, and a lot of the defenders are journalists, are just the like knowing that it needs to be done and that you're actually having an impact. And basically a lot of the defenders, they are doing it for their community, for their people, and just seeing that strength, I think it's an inspiration to be strong as well, because they are willing to sacrifice their life for what they believe, and that's extremely powerful, right? And you just that just moves you, and you're like, you know what, if people are willing to sacrifice their life for what they believe, I think I can do a little bit, I can do my
Mm,
part, and
mm.
let's
Yeah.
work on this
Yeah.
together. Yeah.
Did you ever have any fear yourself that by you supporting people that are exposing injustice that your own life was in danger?
Yeah, I mean, we were in multiple instances in which there were shootings and we had to hide and, enter into areas of the countries where their basically authorities are not even allowed, and they are like, well, good luck, you are on your own at this point. So yeah, there were a lot of instances which you also expose yourself, but I think that is a reminder of the fragility of life as
Mm,
well.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Uh,
it was obviously a lot. When tell this part of my story, people are always like, okay, lady, how are you now teaching yoga?
Yeah, well, I guess that's a great segue into that was the question I wanted to ask you is how then do you find yourself teaching yoga in Seattle, Washington now? Do you find what was the catalyst for you to make that sort of move toward being a full-time teacher?
Yeah, I think there were a couple of things there. I mean, I was first living in Mexico after the graduate school. I was living in Mexico, working in Mexico and Central America. Then I moved to Houston for some time and started working remotely with a lot of travel, like every other week. And there was a point where I just felt I was on the verge of burnout between the trips. That year we had like 5 or 6 people that were literally killed. And I was already teaching a little bit, and I realized that maybe my doing my part was going to start looking a little bit different, and I felt that the practice was also an avenue to create change, um, maybe in a way that was less obvious initially. So I started leaning more into the teaching and then decided to segue into full-time teaching. But thankfully, for some years, I was participating in a project that we were creating like tools using the ideas of the practice, whether it's yoga, meditation, breath work, to support activists and journalists
Mm,
at
wow.
risk as well.
Wow.
So yeah, it was like took a little bit of time, but I found a way to connect both of the things. And I think it was just natural.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Amazing. I got to hear from Brendan's side of the story, but can you share your interpretation of the story of how you both met?
Yeah, we we actually met on an online training initially. That was the first time we saw each other. During COVID, the training was canceled and it happened online. And we just started chatting and we became good friends. And we did some project work together because he was on the road and I was on the road as well. I decided to leave Houston and see where basically life took me. And he proposed to do a project in Seattle for a couple of months. And I was like, oh, sure, I'll just go for a couple of months with you. And a couple of months is now like 4 years and a baby. So
Congra-
things just unfolded in a way that probably none of us really expected. And within that, like work, we once we were in Seattle, and after a few months there, we realized that we wanted to start our own space with, we just share a lot of values, and we felt that that was a good way of creating our little change in our surrounding.
Yeah, congratulations. I hear, or I think I remember him saying that you guys are like around about your third year anniversary with the studio. How does that feel to like as a small business owner, we have little milestones. We'll hear like like oh, I don't even know what the statistic is, but it's something like, I don't know, somewhere between 60 to 80% of most businesses don't make it past 3 years. And then if you make it to 5 years, you're in a very small window of success in relation to that sort of longevity. What are you finding hitting the 3 year mark? What sort of emotions or feelings are you having in relation to the whole experience of running a small business?
Well, I think most of all is just gratitude, because we really have a wonderful community that has been really supportive. Probably he chatted with you about it. We have focused on a very community driven model in which we have like a sliding scale uh, payments. We do a lot of fundraisings, and we really try to focus on how we can support the community. So of course, it's a business, but I think just that aspect has really showed us that people also care, and they have been super active in supporting us and making the business work. So yeah, that's part of it, and it's a lot of work. So that's the other element. Just grateful that we get the strength to be able to do so much work, and thankfully make it work up until now.
That's really cool. I mean, I remember when my wife and I started our running our own studio together, people had said to us that if we, it would either make or break us. What type of advice would you give any couple or partnership that is thinking about embarking upon running a yoga studio or a small business together? What sort of advice would you give them that you feel is quintessential to your success?
Well, I think there are a couple of things. I will talk about yoga because that's obviously what I am more familiar
Yes.
with.
Yes.
What I would say first is really be true to what you want to teach. Um, because sometimes I think there is a little bit of fear of just, oh, I want to our studio to be popular, so just jumping on every single trend that comes in. And for us, I think a key to success has been be truthful to what we want to teach, how we want to teach it. And that is really why people come to us, because we believe in what we're teaching. We practice what we teach. We show up every day with the community. It's either Brendan practicing or me practicing, but we are there, and we, I think, can be like, we can say the practice works because we are living in that way, right? So I think that is a big element. And yeah, just trying to stay really focused instead of trying to do too many things. Maybe do few things but very good instead of all the things but not good at all. So yeah, I think those are the two big things. And if you're doing it with your partner, definitely a lot of communication, and just knowing that there will be things that you will have to maybe do the way the other person would prefer, and the other person will have to do the same for you. But yeah, that part is interesting for sure.
I hear ya. I mean, one thing that I feel like that I'm so grateful to have my wife work, us working together is that if I hit a say for if I'm out for a week because I were to catch the flu or be ill or
Yeah.
not feeling well, I know she can come in and run every single facet of the business and communicate with all the students in a very similar fashion that we both kind of maintain together. So, like, whenever I'm out, I don't worry at all about what experience is happening versus maybe if I have an employee that or a person that's teaching for me, I know they might be really good at one task, but I'm maybe getting a little nervous. Are they going to be able to hold down the other? Would you say that you have a similar type of feeling?
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah.
think, I mean, the other person is literally in the same boat, wants to really make the business work. So you can fully trust them that they will cherish it like it's their own because it is,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And I
Yep.
think the other beautiful thing, I don't know if you have the same experiences, since you are like working towards the same goal, also it's a really good sounding board because you might have an idea and your partner might be like, know about that, or maybe this is how we can do it
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
So you get a lot of feedback, because even if you have similar ways of teaching and thinking about things, there's also different, obviously our different experiences make us think differently. So I think it's a beautiful combination of, yeah, we have a similar like idea and goal and ethos, but we also have different perspectives which can make us be much more creative, and you just have very interesting conversations that can allow you to create something that is really beautiful.
Yeah. Great point. Sometimes I hear folks say that if you work together, then you'll never be out of work. You know, you say like then you have some time off together and then you find yourselves talking about the studio. But I don't really feel like that's a problem. Like I feel like we talk about it if we want to talk about it. And if we're at a point where we're just like having a rough day where I'm really tired and Tamara wants to talk about what happened at the studio, I might actually have to say, "Oh my gosh, I had such a huge day. I think let's like talk about this later." Do you ever feel like that's even an issue at all?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's natural, especially right now for us, that it's like a new business and we're always having a lot of, ideas, and we run retreats and we do a lot of travel teaching. So sometimes it's just inevitable to talk about work very often. But we do something similar when we have some times of the day where it's like after 8 p.m., let's avoid talking about business because it's too much. Or if someone feels like it's not a good time, just saying, you know what, I'm not in the space of talking about work right now. Let's just maybe schedule a more of a formal business meeting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's just part of having a business with your partner. You
Yeah.
will have to talk about it.
Yeah. That's just the way it's going to be. Christiane, I'm so appreciative to have this opportunity to speak with you. And one of my goals with this show and channel is to stay politically friendly and to not really go down the road of like bashing any one particular political view. However, I have this great opportunity to ask you a question or some questions regarding like my own personal interpretation of what I'm watching in the United States in relation to like ICE and ICE raids. And I personally have a hard time watching it because I feel like seeing people with masks on and the way that they're going about doing it feels very like terrorism to me. And so I understand, but then I speak with people who have immigrated into US that are kind of somewhat okay with it because they feel like, look, I went through the proper channels to be able to do this, and I don't want people to be able to do it without doing it the same way that I did. So I'm just really curious with your background, and you're from Mexico and you have an education and experience with working in the field of social justice. What is your feeling on what you're watching currently in the United States?
Yeah, it breaks my heart.
Because of
It
the
breaks my
yeah,
heart. Yeah, I think unfortunately, what we're witnessing is a regression of rights in many ways. And certain populations are obviously being targeted in a way that is really harsh. And yeah, unfortunately, regression of rights can take a very long time to, let's say, get back to what it was. So it's just really challenging to watch. It's painful, and I think a lot of people's lives are just being destroyed. So yeah, I think from the perspective of rights, just even if we think about the rule of law, I think the interpretation of the rule of law in this case is just very lax, because a lot of things that are happening are not within the parameters of what is okay, even from a legal perspective. So it's a very unfortunate situation.
Yeah. Do you feel like, I mean, I guess what makes me nervous is that if one group is targeted, how come that same ethos couldn't be targeted against me at some point? Does that make
Um,
sense?
yeah, which is basically what happens in a lot of regimes, right? We start with, well, they start with maybe some of the most vulnerable groups, but then those groups, once you have targeted them, then you will go to the next group and so on. So I think it's very important for us to just be aware that even if you're not targeted right now personally, that doesn't mean you won't be targeted later on, whether it's for your political views or, um, just because you think differently or because you do certain type of work or love certain type of people. So yeah, I think that's super important to have in mind. And yeah, unfortunately, that's something that can unfold.
Yeah. Sometimes when there's this idea or thought that of what's the point? What can I do? What can I do to help? Or I feel helpless, or I feel like it's so much bigger than me. I'm not able to do something that can actually help the greater good. What is, in your opinion, something that could potentially help bring a stronger sense of community and care for humanity when going
Yeah.
through these types of experiences?
Yeah, I think there's a lot that can be done. I'll talk, for example, some of the things that we are doing, because as you say, I think a lot of us sometimes just feel, oh, I'm helpless. The situation is so much bigger than myself. Whatever I do, it doesn't really matter. But I think that's already accepting defeat in a way. And if we all thought that way, then nothing is going to change in any regard. So just understanding that a small action, just like the Gita says, like no effort goes to waste. Literally, that's one of my like daily maybe mantras in a way that I repeat. It's just like no effort goes to waste. Everything that we do really can matter. So from I think doing fundraiser events, just as yoga teachers, being really working on being inclusive, creating spaces that feel safe for people to come and practice. Um, being active if you're willing to in the causes that you believe in, even if it's, dedicate a little bit of your time, work with organizations. There's a lot of volunteer work out there. So there's so many different ways in which we can help, right? I just think it's just do it. It's like your practice. You, even if you're tired, you go to your mat and you start with a sun salutation. So even if you're like, oh, I don't know what to do, maybe go to your local organization and ask what kind of volunteer work they have available. If you're a teacher, how can I support all students to feel welcome, even in this climate that is very challenging? People need to feel supported and held right now. So I think the little things become big things when we actually take action versus just staying, sitting and doing nothing. That's the worst thing that we can do.
Yeah. That's really interesting. How has becoming a mother or a mom influenced and or shifting or changing or evolving your perspective on social justice?
Well, I think I think my perspective on social justice generally has not changed because I have been involved like for so long in these issues that they're just part of my daily life. Being a mom, of course, makes you even more, and maybe it gives you more courage to do more because you want a better world for your child. And I have always thought that we have the potential for creating change, the change we want. We're change agents. But even more so, like I want a better world for Amaya. I want a place where she's safe, a place where she um, can be, surrounded by all kinds of people and love all kinds of people. And I think, yeah, it just gives me more energy to work towards that.
Yeah, that's cool. What about in relation to yoga practice? I saw on your Instagram, there's some really cool photos of you as you were going through the stages of pregnancy. And I'm curious, what has been your experience as a mom in relation to letting go of certain aspects of what you think you should be doing in your yoga, and how are you feeling now in the postpartum experience?
Yeah, that actually has been an incredible, I think, lesson from the practice. As you know, I mean, we have a Mysore program. I practice Ashtanga. And I think sometimes there's a sense that Ashtanga is a very, of course, it looks sometimes from what you see externally, it's like, oh, that's too much. It's a practice that almost looks like contortion, especially because we were practicing a lot of the advanced series. And the reality is, it just is a practice that has accompanied me throughout the whole process. I practiced the intermediate 2 days before having her. Of course, a modified version of it, but it's just really adaptable, and I think that's a beautiful part of the practice, that it is much more adaptable than sometimes people think. So I was able to practice until literally 2 days before she was born. It was so helpful during labor. I had a beautiful birth. And then 5 weeks postpartum, I started practicing again. Of course, very soft with a lot of changes, but it's still really a lifelong practice. And it was so beautiful to see that the practice can just be adapted to whatever experience is happening in my life, to whatever life stage. So yeah, I am just happy of exploring the practice in a different way now that obviously my time is more limited and breastfeeding. I was just, my body was going through a lot of changes in postpartum and pregnancy. So I think it was just, I have approached it with a lot of curiosity and just gratitude of whatever is possible right now, without attaching to, oh, I was able to do these things a year ago. That really doesn't matter.
Yeah. How important is it to have a good teacher?
I think it's essential.
Yeah.
Um, I think teachers are, even if you're a teacher, we say this to people who practice with us all the time, is it is so important because your teacher not only helps you to remove obstacles, but also, I think, allows you to stay humble. And I think that's a really important element of the practice, just knowing that we're here to continue learning. So we're really grateful to be able to study with our teacher Manju Joyce and Satu, and also having Christina as a guide during pregnancy and postpartum has been amazing because she herself has experienced motherhood. So yeah, I think teachers are just really important part of the process because it's also acknowledging that you don't know everything,
Mm.
that there's so much growth that you still um, can look forward to.
Very cool. I agree with you. What sort of qualities do you strive to cultivate as a student?
I one of the biggest one that has been, something I've been working on since the beginning is just acceptance and kindness. Because as a dancer and then a very, let's say, dedicated student, and in academia, you sometimes become very obsessed about the results. So one of the attitudes that I have worked really hard to cultivate is just accepting what is and accepting it with kindness and joy. And the other piece is definitely curiosity, just really staying curious to continue learning.
Yeah, great answer. What is a particular subject or book or thing that you have put your attention on recently in relation to something that you're interested in learning yourself currently?
Well, I was obviously reading a lot of pregnancy books and postpartum books. So, Yoga Sadhana for Mothers is a very beautiful one that I really like. And right now, I think a lot of my attention has been around just practice and not only motherhood, but, just how in different stages of your life you can still use this beautiful practice in a way that serves you instead of the other way around, you becoming obsessed with, oh, I need 2 hours of practice to be able to do it, otherwise it's not worth it. So yeah, just how to support my own students to transition through different moments in a way that feels supportive, and that practice can become something that they have to support their current situation versus a burden, or oh my god, I have to do this. Yeah, that kind of thing.
That's
So
cool. Nice. Is there an example of something you can think of where you were extremely grateful for having the yoga community that you've cultivated, where maybe you were down and someone stepped up and helped you out?
yeah, I mean, in so many ways,
Yeah.
our community has helped us. Most recently, the sweetest thing they've done, for example, was when our baby was born, they did a little food train, and literally we had warm meals until my mom got there with all the traditional recipes from their families for breastfeeding and postpartum healing. And it was just so beautiful to watch because they put so much care and attention into everything that they brought us. For me, food is really important. My mom is a chef, and in Mexico, just sharing family meals is a big part of how we interact with each other. So that really warmed my heart because I could see the love everyone was putting into everything that they brought us.
That's awesome. That's
So
cool.
yeah, I just think yoga is a beautiful vehicle also to connect in a meaningful way, um, and in a very authentic way if you allow it, because we live in a world in which a lot of people have a lot of masks. Oh, I'm an engineer and I have this kind of position in my job, or I have money, or whatever. But the practice allows us sometimes to maybe get rid of that and just connect in a very human way. And I'm just very grateful to be able to foster those kinds of spaces.
Nice.
And we see beautiful connection arising from it.
Oh, that's cool, Christiane. I love hearing about that. Do you, what philosophical or spiritual insights have you gravitated toward in relation to your yoga practice?
I think the biggest insight for me is that really the answer to a lot of our, maybe suffering, or problems, or however you want to call it, is stay kind to yourself, kind to others. So just the idea of how can we be kind to ourselves, others, everyone that surrounds us, our community. I think that's one of the biggest
Mhm.
takeaways from a spiritual perspective in my own practice. And it's just super simple, but I think it's very applicable to everyone's lives.
Ab-
Really being mindful of how, our how we're impacting others and ourselves, and how can we express love and kindness, um yeah, in all kinds of ways.
That's really cool. I remember at one point my wife and I were living in San Diego, and we had a yoga studio in Mira Mesa Boulevard, San Diego area,
Mhm.
and my wife's grandparents were wanting to travel down to Tijuana to get medication, which was cheaper and then in the States. And I remember the time I had traveled down through Tijuana before and gone surfing down in Baja. And I just really loved Mexico, but also felt a little fish out of water and was just kind of starting to like get acquainted. And I remember when her grandparents said we're driving down there, I remember saying to my wife, like, wow, your parents want to drive down to Tijuana, and they wanted us to go with them. So I was like, yeah, well, let's go. And people were so friendly to them. And I don't know if it was because they were older, but what I picked up on is that in Mexican culture, there's this real adoration or admiration and respect for the elderly population. And the way that everybody treated them was so kind and so amazing that my experience of going into Tijuana just was completely different. And I guess I'd like to ask you, being that you're cross-cultural, what are some of the things that you notice about Mexican culture that really it makes you feel good and excited that you maybe see it a little different, is different in Mexico than in US?
I mean, I think you captured very nicely. Bec- Mexican culture is family is a huge pillar. Family is everything in many ways, right? So regarding the elder, for example, everyone has like the abuelitos, and people really care for their elders. A lot of them live with the family, and there's just a sense of they have done so much for us, and of course it's our turn to do something for our elders, right? So I think that's a beautiful part of it. It's just like the family component. Your family will be there no matter what, basically. And people really have that sense of, community, wanting to support each other. Especially now that I'm a mom, I have just felt it even more so. Just you're walking the street with your baby and people are like, oh my god, the baby's gorgeous, congratulations. And it's a stranger. That would not happen in the US, really,
Yeah.
or very rarely happen. So I think that, like, that element definitely is something that I miss a lot. And I think because family is such a big anchor, that also creates much more of a community, a sense of community, because we're used to thinking more in a collective way than just in an individual way. And that not only applies to Mexico. There's a lot of other cultures that, in that regard, are similar. So
Yeah.
I think that element is really beautiful, and that's a value that we have tried to also share in our shala. Like, we are in a little way like a yoga family, and how can we support each other when something happens, right? Not just, oh, we have fun together. It's like, if someone has a problem, how can we actually be of support, and just being aware of um of our role within the collective, and not just what is good for ourselves. So
Mm.
yeah, that, and just the joyfulness of the culture, which you probably have also experienced. People are just, they're very joyful, they have fun, they um yeah, there's just like this sense of uh just wanting to enjoy the moment and have fun, and I think that's very beautiful as well.
Yeah, that's really cool. I feel like that's one of the things I love about living in Florida is that we have such an incredible mixture
Yeah.
of cultural diversity here between Miami and where we are in North Palm Beach area. Like I think Florida has gotten so much better since my childhood because of the amount of diversity and flavor that us all mixing and coming together brings. I guess I just want to keep celebrating the fact that we're better off communicating and sharing the joys of each other's cultures. Is there any aspects of American or US culture that you'd like to highlight that you find is loving, caring, and or something that surprises you about living here?
Um,
That one's harder. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. I'm kidding,
right now it's
Christiane.
a little harder. No, I'm kidding.
Um,
No,
yeah.
I mean, no, 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 no,
No, I
no.
know. I'm just
I
having
want to.
fun.
No,
I'm
I
just
have
having
lived in New York and obviously now in Seattle and in Houston, and I love the fact that people from all over the world can, you know, just share space. And right now is more challenging, but when you create the conditions, it's just such a nice um, just melting pot and space where people from all over can connect and can share their values in a respectful way, which I think that's really good. And again, in the Shala, that's something that we really love to highlight. So when we do potlucks, it's like, oh, bring something from your country that you love or your family recipe. And we get, amazing dishes from India, China, Japan, and it's just so, it has so much potential in that way.
yeah.
So as you said, we're just so much better when we celebrate each other's backgrounds and how diversity makes us just way stronger. um, just we can really learn from each other versus saying, oh, just my thing is good or whatever the case.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think that's the part that I like because I have had the fortune of living in cities where that is really present. And I have loved knowing people from all over and just appreciating um, beautiful things about everyone's culture and background.
Nice. You practice Ashtanga yoga, and how are you processing the changes that have gone on? I mean, there's always change, so I don't, you know, I feel like we're constantly going through change. But I would just like to get a sense of how do you see yourself in relation to the whole like hierarchical structure of the Ashtanga yoga community? Because like I'm watching you and Brendan, and I feel like you guys, just off of your social media, you guys are holding down a good, solid program, and it looks like people are happy in your space. And I know I just would love to hear about like, did it affect you having different evolutionary changes happen, or are you feeling like you're kind of independent of all of that because you're basing your practice off of your own personal experience and not trying to fall into a hierarchical structure? I'd just love to hear about kind of where you sit with all this now.
Yeah. You know, there's always a lot of, I think right now we're in a very interesting moment in the Ashtanga world in a way. Brendan and I both practice and learn from Manju Joyce. And, I just really appreciate his perspective in just, in a way, respecting the practice, but a little bit staying away from a lot of the maybe discussions around the hierarchy and who's authorized and who's not, and who's deauthorized and that kind of thing. And I just really, it really resonates with me the way he teaches, the fact that there's a bit more flexibility within the practice, it's more adaptable. And I think that's why we have a successful program, is because that allowance has really helped us be able to work with everyone that shows up and not just a very specific kind of person, maybe that has more ability in their body, or that they have a lot of time and can come 6 days a week. Not everyone has that time. Not everyone has, you know, that space in their life. So I think that keeps us a little bit like different than some of the teachers that were maybe practicing with Sharat. And we try to stay also away because everyone has their perspective. And I think sometimes a lot of the energy is being directed to who you practice with, and there's a lot of ego in that as well. So I prefer to not get too much into it. Of course, we respect everyone's teachings and we understand that it's a very complex situation. And we honestly have worked with teachers from different backgrounds because we think a lot of people have very valuable things to share, independent of who they studied with. But of course, we feel very just grateful to learn from Manju and Satu and, also Christina, because we really get the, we really feel that that allows us to support everyone in a way that is very kind and very understanding. So, yeah.
Good answer. I agree with you. I agree. I think based off what I heard you say, just practice and be happy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like it's pretty simple. I like the fact that you are keeping things very simple and like down to earth and that seems really important. I'm curious, how do you see the intersection of social responsibility, family life, and spiritual practice informing the future of yoga teaching?
Wow, that's a big one. Um,
I know. Do you have any insights there? I figured maybe,
Yeah, I think
yeah.
social responsibility again, just understanding that if we take concepts like ahimsa, non-harming, or just a lot of the general ideas of the Gita of be having skillful action, there's just we can do a lot, right? And just being mindful of how do I impact others people's lives, how can I support my community in a very simple way. So I think that's one element. And then just finding balance in family life. I think everyone has a different situation, and from a very very like simple perspective, if you're a practitioner, I think is being really realistic of, okay, what is my time availability, how can I make a commitment to my practice in a way that makes sense for me, and whatever that is, if it's I can come 3 days a week, do my practice and really focus, then commit to those 3 days, actually come and actually do the thing. And maybe if a situation changes and then you can come six, that's fantastic, right? But I think just creating the space for yourself in a way that is kind and realistic versus trying to be someone else or look like someone else. I think that's a big element of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and social responsibility. I think we just need to start thinking beyond ourselves more and understanding that everything we do has an impact on the collective. And if we acknowledge that, we hopefully will take better decisions on how we interact with the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Great point. Excellent, Christiane. I have one more question for you. Thank you so much for taking time out of I know you're busy, so thank you so much. If you could offer one piece of guidance to teachers and practitioners navigating change, whether through parenthood, activism, or aging, what would you want them to remember?
I think one of the things that has been really coming up in conversations with students and people that have just been asking me actually about that is accepting what is the current situation with, again, kindness and joy, instead of wanting things to be either different as they were before. For example, if you're a new mom, of course your practice will be different if you have an injury, if you have sickness. So yeah, being content with the situation without um uh, wishing it was different. And I think when we start from that acceptance, then a lot of things unfold naturally because you just accept what is, and every day is going to be a little bit different. And maybe you will go back to practicing the way you were, maybe not, but really the benefits of the practice won't, you won't have more benefit because you are doing the most crazy poses. Sorry for that weird noise. That weird noise is they sharpen knives in Mexico. We still have that. So
Yeah.
there's a little cart that comes and sharpens knives.
Don't
So I'm
worry.
sorry for that.
Oh no, it's no problem at all. I actually did wonder. I was like, what? I wonder if the baby has like a flute or something. She's already 3 months old, can like play some flute sound. No, that's no problem at all. And I like the fact that you say we still have people that sharpen knives here. Like, you're right. Yeah,
I mean,
we don't have someone with a cart walking around saying, "Hey, would you like for me to sharpen your knives?" I know. I hear
I know.
you. It's
It's very
amazing.
weird, but it's one
It's
of the
not weird.
fun.
It's good. Yeah.
But well, anyways, yeah, just I think contentment, acceptance, and just finding joy in what is available to you right now. Because I think we, again, live in a society that there's always like, oh, I want more, or I want this thing that I don't have. So we will always be chasing the next thing or the thing we had or what others have. But if we can just be content with the current situation and work with it, even with its challenges, I think that really helps us stay grounded in the practice and really get a lot of the benefit from it because that's really what it's about.
No, I think you're
Like
so
being
right.
present with what is, not what we want.
I love that. I hear you. That is another great piece of advice. And I really enjoy this opportunity to meet both you and Brendan. I love meeting another couple that's raising a family, running a studio, happy doing it. So for me, that's really inspirational to get to speak with you and to meet both of you. And I'm really happy for you guys because being able to raise a family is a really incredible thing. And then to be able to have a yoga studio and let that evolve over a period of time is really amazing. Thank you so much, Christian, for speaking with me and for sharing your insights. I really wish I could come to Mexico City. I've heard so many great things about it. And then when you said your mom was a chef, I was just like, oh my gosh, I bet you she's eating really amazing food every day right now. So I hear it's incredible there, and I hope one day to come visit. But thank you so much for everything, and thank you to your family for taking care of the baby so we could chat. And I hope to get a chance to meet you guys in person one day.
I'm sure that we will. We will have to make it happen. And whenever you go to Mexico City, you will reach out and I'll send you all the recommendations.
Thank you so much. I will take you up on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a
Thank you.
beautiful day.
Thank you.
Appreciate the chance to chat with you. Ciao,
Thank you.
ciao.
Yeah, thank you.